pulling the boys of the wild boar soccer team out of the cave. Already we can report today that 4 boys have been removed and were safely taken to the hospital. But this is a long process. It is a treacherous trek for each one of these boys to get out of that cave. You're looking at images right now. This was that moment when they discovered that the boys were alive in those caves earlier this week. Remember, it was June 23rd when the boys went on this cave expedition with their soccer coach, 12 boys and one 25-year-old coach. The rains came through, flooded the cave, and the boys and their coach had to retreat deeper into that cave, about 3 miles, when their exit was cut off. Now we have an international multi-agency effort, the best divers from around the world entering the cave in what is called a buddy system, working with the boys. They had to train them for a few days to get them ready for this arduous journey back out to safety. Let's go to Eva Pilgrim live in London with some new developments. Eva, we were watching. We know that 4 boys made it out, but
2 of them out at a time, and they're putting a diver on either side. And then, of course, there are divers all along the way to help in that process. And the first one came out about 5:40 local time. The second boy came about 10-20 minutes later. And then there was about a 2-hour lull before the next 2 came out. So they're having to space them out just a bit to be able to get them through that process, but making sure there's enough oxygen for them along the way. That is critical in getting them out of the cave safely. Now, we do know that a doctor actually examined them earlier before they made the decision to move these boys. He determined that they were both physically and mentally fit to make this journey, and that this is something that they could in fact do before they ever began to make this decision. And they talked to the boys' families about this as well. But a delay here because they have to make sure that the things are in place to keep these boys safe with.
And Eva, I want to talk a little bit more about the build-up to this decision to go in and start extracting the boys from this cave, because there were a few ideas that never really worked out. There was an idea of cabling in an oxygen line so they can essentially oxygenate the entire cave system from where the boys were 3 miles in along the way to get out. But they said that wasn't feasible. They also talked about drilling holes and maybe find some way to get them out through one of the boreholes, similar to what we saw with the Chilean miners. But instead they decided to remove the boys from the exact same way they came. And there was a reason for that, mainly the weather and the concern about more rains further flooding the caves. What can you tell us about the decision-making process that went into saying, you know what, today's the day we're going to move the boys out?
Well, they looked at the fact that they don't have this infinite amount of time to get these boys out. They examined all of the options, going from the top, digging down, drilling down, seeing if it was stable enough to be able to drill down and then bring the boys up. That wasn't something that was possible to do. And in some of the locations, it would have taken an eternity to get to them. Today, they looked at their situation. They saw that the water levels were the lowest they've been in the entire time they've been examining this process. The boys are in good health, and the oxygen is somewhat stable enough for them to be able to do this and keep the boys safe. So they saw the conditions of today and said, today is the day we must go in. And tomorrow, before they decide to actually go back after more boys, they will again, the fact that these boys, went into that cave, it was the beginning of monsoon season. When we were first covering this, the officials in that area said, yes, it is monsoon season, but we've never had rain and flooding like this in these caves before. And those boys had been in that cave before, many of them, and this coach had taken his team into that cave before. This was supposed to be a team building exercise. This wasn't something that they weren't accustomed to. This was something that quickly got out of hand and was not what they expected.
Yeah, that coach has been seen by some as both a hero and a villain a little bit in all of this. Some people criticizing his decision to take the boys in there. Some of the boys told us that they would go in the caves and sometimes not even tell their parents.
Because of that, once they come out, of course, they're going to be examined for post-traumatic stress disorder. But we know that the rest of the children won't be even attempting to come out. The divers will not be going in for another 8 or so hours when it is daylight. And we've heard that it is possible that the children who come out tomorrow might be wearing shades to shield their eyes from the sun, because they haven't seen it in so long. But truly fitting in a sense. If you think about it, they're all rock stars for having endured so much for so long. Whit.
Adrian, and you can't help but think about the family.